All right, hello, welcome back to Inside the Data on Inside the Birds. I'm Geoff Mosher, and of course, we're talking data, we're talking analytics, we're talking metrics. So we got Sam Finkel, our great analytics expert who does such a great job here for the Inside the Birds community. And the questions keep coming in, and we got a great question that once again, it's like challenging because numbers can't tell. As we say all the time, Sam, numbers only tell half the story. But we got a wonderful question. So today's data question comes from a loyal Inside the Birds follower. He's on our Patreon channel. He's always reposting our work, doing great. We love him. He's Wilton. And Wilton has a question, Sam, about Jalyx Hunt and if there's any kind of metrics or analytics that can predict how he'll be in year two, given his surprising development in year one to the point where he's in the Super Bowl playing, getting sacks, hurries, and winning, helping the team win a Super Bowl championship as a rookie third-round pick out of Houston Christian. He was supposed to be a project, right? Didn't think he was going to be seeing the field like this. So a really good question.
Yeah, it's a great question from a great person. So thank you again for the question. Thank you for the support, obviously. Wilton, we appreciate it. In order to answer this question, I kind of had to create a framework. And look, not everyone's going to agree with this framework. It's more of a thought exercise, right? I don't think I can accurately project this. If I could, I'd probably be in finance and a millionaire. That'd be really cool. But another note,
probably be in gambling more than that. You'd probably be working for DraftKings.
That's true. Look, there's alternative career paths regardless if I was that good at projection. But let's go on this journey together. Let's do a little thought exercise. While we're doing it, I think it's really important to recognize that, a second year leap for the Eagles players, for any player really, is position, it's volume, it's opportunity dependent. There's no way to look at a receiver as like a great analog for how an edge is going to progress from year one to year two. And honestly, there's not a good way to look at one edge to another edge, because all players are different. Their opportunities are different. Their schemes are different. They're people, right? I mean, everybody is a little bit different. Everyone's going to progress a little bit differently, but let's do it anyway. Let's have some fun with it.
Yeah. And I want to remind people, I say this all the time. Development in the NFL isn't always linear, meaning we've seen guys take step backs. We've seen guys take a huge step forward that like Zach Bond last year, no one could have ever predicted that. There's no analytic. Yeah, no, there was no. Listen, the Eagles are as into analytics as any team in the world, and they could not have told you when they signed him that he was going to be an all-pro inside linebacker. At the same time, to keep it Eagles, I don't know that after Devin White made all-pro in his second year, I forget what year it was, 2021, maybe that 3 years later he'd be barely looking for a job, right? You know what I'm saying? And he didn't play last year. I think he was on a practice squad for the Texans. So just because your trajectory looks one way doesn't mean it's going to follow. Just because it's going down doesn't mean it's going to stay down. So that's what makes this all, I love the way you framed it, a thought exercise. And what you did here when we bring up the charts is I thought this was a great idea on your part. Let's just take players and see how they did from year one to year two at all positions, just to see if there's any commonalities or ways to judge it. So I thought that was a really smart way to go about it.
Thank you. I did limit it to the first 3 rounds just because we'd be looking at charts all day. And, some people love that, honestly, and I appreciate those people. They're my people. But for the sake of, just making the point, especially because it's not a great, extrapolation opportunity, I figured we'll just limit it a little bit.
Yeah. Any more would have been out of your pay grade, Sam. All right. So let's take a look at the charts that you put together. So we'll bring up the 3 charts that you've done using Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, and Milton Williams. You have a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. Very well and very intentional, Sam.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I did the last 3 years. So you're going to see the 2021 rookies, 2022 rookies, and the 2023 rookies. And we'll just kind of go through there, at least the first 3 rounds. And listen, these charts, even though it's simple, are a little bit confusing. So we're going to walk you through each and every one of them. And I just think it's a good way to kind of understand how these players progress. And honestly, if that's the only takeaway you have from this is how did the Eagles rookies go from rookie year to the second year, I think that's a great thing to learn, and I think it's a great thing to discuss. So if that's the greatest takeaway we have from here, I think it's a win for us.
Yeah, and the contextually, Sam, it helps. I mean, it's the same head coach. For a defensive player, it'll be the second. It's the same concepts of defense. They've been trying to run a Fangio style defense. It's obviously different with Vic Fangio and his crew there. But the point is, it's the organizational philosophy. This is not like give me 1 second to think of a team that's like constantly on a different philosophy or a different head coach every year or every other year. Kind of like the Dolphins are. Like sometimes they're 3-4, sometimes they're 4-3. Now they're Mike McDonald. A couple of years ago, it was a different head coach who I can't. Oh, Adam Gase was it? I don't remember. But either way, the point is like, what's the Dolphins' identity? I have no idea because every 2 or 3 years they're on a different head coach and coordinator. And the Eagles have had some. Obviously, they've lost some coordinators along the way, but philosophically and organizationally, what they do is similar. So I think that helps in just keeping it Eagles oriented.
Sure, absolutely. So let's look at Devonta Smith's rookie year and his second year. So instead of snaps, I went with, so again, I used PFF for every single one of these except for Devonta Smith and Sidney Brown.
Okay.
And the reason I didn't do that is because I really wanted to use NFL Pro for those ones. And I just thought the data is more fun for, receiver and defensive back in that regard.
Okay.
And with that, NFL Pro has routes.
Mhm.
And I think routes are a better indicator than snaps, just in this particular context.
Sure.
So that being said, in his rookie year, he had 462 routes run, and in his second year, 558 routes run. That's a difference of 96, and it is a 21% increase from rookie year to second year.
Mhm.
Now, that translated in receptions as well. He had 64 receptions his rookie year and 95 his second year, which is a change of 31, which is almost a 50%
Yeah, that's
increase.
big.
So basically that shows that he was being targeted a lot more on these routes. Well, not just being targeted, he was catching more on these routes run.
Mhm.
And then his yards went from 916 to 1,196, which is a change of 280 and is a 31% change.
Mhm.
Touchdowns went from 5 to 7, which is 2, which is a 40% increase. And these that's what you see. Like when you're on the field more, when you're running more routes, those things are going to go up.
Mhm.
Now, with what you'll see as a trend mostly in these charts is typically when your volume goes up, your relative stats, the yards per reception are going to go down just because
Right.
it's going to regress to the mean, and it's going to be a lot more. It's a better indicator at that point because of the sample size. It really everything comes back to sample size at the end of the day. The more
Mhm.
reps you have, the more anomalous, like any type of weird, whether one way or the other, will be kind of mitigated, right? Because like
Right.
when you have a lot more opportunities, the outliers are kind of just, they don't affect the mean as much. So that's what you see. Oh, we're getting a statistics lesson in here too. I love it.
I do love that.
But as I highlighted what in green, what got better in each of them.
Mhm.
And then you see the receptions per routes went up, and then the receptions per touchdown went up.
Right. Right. So
Well,
this is a
actually,
clear case of what you were talking about with opportunity. He ran more routes, so therefore he caught more passes, got more yards, scored more touchdowns, and the what give us REC dash is that reception per routes run? Like how many
yeah.
times you caught a pass? Okay.
Well, that
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 one as
that one
well.
is just, it's a pure percentage. It's like how many receptions did he get out of the routes
Right.
run?
Right.
And then the next one is receptions per touchdown. So
Mhm.
he was catching a touchdown every 13 receptions his rookie year, and then 13.6
Right.
his second year, just because there were more routes. So
Mhm. So in 4 of the 6 categories, you saw a progression.
yes,
Give
and
and contextually, that would became A, because of more opportunities, and B, because he's a first round pick in year 2 learning the NFL. So that was almost expected.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's kind of your takeaways with Devonta Smith, at least
Okay.
in particular.
So now we go to a second rounder in Landon Dickerson.
Mm-hmm.
And what jumps out at you on this one?
Well, you see a lot of green, don't you? That's
Yeah.
that's, that's not bad.
Yep.
So with this one, what you want to see, I did pass blocks snaps. That's the PBS.
Mm-hmm.
He went from 535 to 714, which is a change of 179, which is a 33% increase. His sacks allowed went down, and you see a negative number and you see it in green. But again, remember, this is offensive line, so you
Mm-hmm.
want those numbers to go down. So a 50% decrease, which again, it sounds silly. You go from 2 to 1, like that's, but it's still there. It'll
Yep.
be more meaningful for higher volume statistics. Hits went from 8 to 3, which is -5, is 63% decrease. His hurries went from 23 to 17, -6, a 26% decrease. And total pressures went from 33 to 21, which is -12, or a 36% decrease. And then what's interesting is as these numbers went down, but his snaps went up, his relative statistics also improved, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
he had more snaps, but he had less pressures.
Right.
That's one of the rare instances that honestly indicates, significant growth. Not
Right.
just growth, significant growth.
Right. This is almost the opposite of what we talked about with Devontae Smith, where the more volume he got in year two, naturally the yards per reception came down a little bit because there's going to be some screen. You're just going to see like you can't keep that number up. But for Landon Dickerson, the more that he played, the less snaps and sacks and hits and pressures he allowed, which helps his pressure number, his percentages.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important to recognize, because it's one of the rare instances where this phenomenon occurs.
Got it. Awesome stuff. All right. So Milton Williams. Now it's important to remember Milton Williams really saw his biggest emergence in year three, and then last year, year four, he was unbelievable. So the first 2 years, he was really part of a rotation.
Yeah. And honestly, he was a victim of losing opportunities from his rookie year
Yep.
to his sophomore season. And I think that's really interesting because, with you see a rotational player, everyone expects, this player is going to get more snaps because they're developing, they're growing. And that just wasn't the case with Milton Williams from year one to year two. But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that he wasn't going to grow. I think it goes to exactly what you were talking about before, that nothing's linear, right?
Right. Right.
And I mean, it ended up becoming a little bit more linear after year 3 and year 4, but it was some up and down, right? And
Right.
so and look, there's not a huge difference in the pass rush snaps.
Mhm.
It was 272 to 262. It was a 3% or almost 4% decrease in snaps. That's like
Right.
negligible. That's nothing.
Right.
But what was like interesting is that he got better, right? You can see he got better because his sacks doubled.
Yeah, it's interesting that his sacks doubled while his hits, hurries, and pressures all went a little bit lower. So that's I don't know what to make of that.
He
And
finished.
again, the sample size a little strange there. But again, he played basically this. He played fewer snaps, basically the same, and he was in a rotation here. So you have to deal with that kind of reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I think the relative stats tell a really good story here, and that's why I'm glad I had them. Like sometimes it's a little bit weird, and you'll see places where it's weird. But if you see it took him about 16.38 snaps to get a pressure his second year, and 14.32 his first year. So he was pressuring a little bit less, but his sack differential it was crazy, right? It went from 136. He was getting a sack every 136 snaps to
Mhm.
65.5.
Wow.
That is a huge difference. So it just to me that meant he was finishing, right? So he
Yes.
was getting very similar pressures. I mean, he got a little bit less, he had a little bit less snaps, but he was finishing and
Yep.
he was learning to finish. And so I think that there you can see the growth in there.
Yes. Sam, I also think that we can probably use this one out of all three the most to say and look forward in the spirit of the question and say, hey, even if Jalyx Hunt remember now, he's got Nolan Smith on the other side, and they brought in Josh Uche. They brought in Azeez Ojulari. These are, especially Ojulari is a very good pass rusher. We went through, when healthy, what his pass rushing data is, and it's really good. So it's possible, now the league has seen Jalyx Hunt and he's still working on his craft a little, it's possible he could maybe not play as many more reps as you think he's going to play this year as last year, right? And it's possible he may take a small step back in certain areas, but that doesn't mean that by year 3 and 4, like Milton Williams, he can't put that together and really become an amazing pass rusher. Meaning, like, don't lose faith in this guy if year 2 is not what you expected in year 2. Because right now, because he was started and they won the Super Bowl, I think everybody's expecting him to be Trent Cole next year. If he's not, that's okay.
Yeah, I think that is the right takeaway, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if they're playing Ojulari a lot opposite, or if they're playing Jihad Campbell, right? Like if they're playing other guys a lot because those guys are doing really well too, okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that all hope is lost for Jalyx Hunt. It just means that opportunities are going to other players.
And remember, Hunt was a pretty raw prospect, and he did see a lot of success in the playoffs near the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still developing and learning. He's not even close to his potential yet. And so if Fangio and the staff feels like he needs more time to develop and less opportunities on the field, that doesn't mean they don't believe in him. And I think that's important to recognize.
Absolutely. All right. So let's move on to the next player, Jordan Davis from the 2022 draft, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So first rounder of 2022 draft. So again, pressures. I'm sorry, not pressures, pass rush snaps. Yeah, I got myself there. I gotta went from 128 to 304, an increase of 176. That's 137% increase, which is pretty sizable. I mean, his snap count was more than double of what he had. So it's interesting.
Yep.
He went from no sacks to 4 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
He went from 2 hits to 1 hit. But again, a sack is greater than a hit. So sometimes those like pressure snaps cannibalize. I think that's something we don't really talk about so much. But like every sack is a hit and a hurry, essentially, right? So, but they don't get counted that way. They get counted as the most complete action. So when you see somebody's sacks go up, logically their hits and hurries will also decrease. But you'll see that same number will be reflected in that pressure category.
Right. So he really had 5 hits on a quarterback. 4 of them were sacks and 1 was just a hit.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to kind of frame it. And I think nobody really talks that way.
Good point.
But I think it's important to recognize, right? I mean, every time you're sacking the quarterback, you are doing every part of the pressure. It is the most complete pressure that you can do.
Right. Right. Because he had 0 sacks in 22, his rookie year, you could say he hit the quarterback twice in 2022. He hit the quarterback 5 times
correct
in 2023. So I get what you're saying. That could be a misleading category where it says only 1 hit in his second year. And I want to remind everybody, we don't have last year's stats. We know we've talked about his improvement a little bit in the pass rush last year, but Sam, specifically, the question was from year 1 to year 2. So Sam only put year 1 and year 2. And year 2 for Jordan Davis, while you do see some growth, that wasn't necessarily a great year. And he was a part of that implosion and didn't play as much down the stretch where, because of lack of technique. Conditioning was a problem, which he acknowledged as well.
Yeah. And I think those are all important things to recognize. But you're right. I did very much limit the scope of the question because we could be this thought exercise could go so many different. We could be talking all day about this.
Well, yeah. I mean, if Jalyx Hunt has a really good year too, someone's going to ask, well, what's the potential of him being like Pro Bowl Hall of Fame by year 3? And then we got to go through all through this all over again where you add, hey, but keep these charts that you made. You just add the extra box.
Exactly.
Right?
But like, that's why I love these questions. They're very theoretical, hypothetical. But who knows, right? At the end of the day, we're just giving our best guess based on what we have.
Right. But I think, and a good common thing is in all the guys the 4 guys you've presented so far, we have generally seen progression and not a whole lot of up and down or linear. Again, snap size for some are hard, but in the case of Davis and Williams, they've always been rotational, but yet you're still seeing encouraging things from year 1 to year 2.
Exactly. And that's really all you can ask.
Right. Now, also from that draft, we have Cam Jurgens and Nakobe Dean. Cam Jurgens was the 2nd-round pick, and Nakobe Dean was the 3rd-round pick. So why don't you go through the Jurgens and Dean stats here?
I'm going to go through Jurgens very quickly. It's not fair. He had 9 pass blocking steps in 22 and then 427 in his 2nd year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing you need to know.
Right. So, plus, I don't even think of all the comparisons we're trying to make as far as what we can expect from Jalyx Hunt in year 2, Jurgens is the least relative. Not to say your work isn't important. What I'm saying is contextually, not only did Jurgens in year 2 play a different position than he didn't play as a rookie, and then in year 2 played right guard. Year 3 he's playing center. So Jalyx Hunt is not going to be asked to be playing nose tackle or 3 tech. He's going to be an edge. Maybe he'll move inside on like some pass rush downs.
Maybe he'll go back to safety.
Right? Yeah, right. Then that would be maybe an apt comparison, but it's really hard to take Jurgens and Jalyx Hunt right now and make any kind of comp.
Well, yeah, I think what shows that is you look at that percent change, it's 4,644% change.
Yeah, that tells the story right there.
So I think
that was supposed to be how it was for Jalyx Hunt, right? Where he went from only maybe like 9 snaps as a rookie to a lot 2nd year, but he wound up playing more.
Yeah. So anyway, just fun to throw out there, but let's throw that one out the window.
Now, Nakobe Dean, a lot more because Nakobe also didn't play. He didn't play a lot as a rookie either, but probably comparable because by year 2 he was a starter and had the expectations.
Yeah. And actually, this should be green. Basically, what we see is from 2022 to 2023, he had 47 snaps to 182, change of 135, 287% increase. Like that's what we were expecting. You're right. Absolutely. Then his tackles went from 4 to 26, 22, a 550% increase. Mm-hmm. And again, the relative stats, we're talking about how many snaps until he gets a tackle. So in the first year, it was every 12. And then the 2nd year, it was every 7.
I think don't you think that's a more telling stat than say, tackles in general are obviously going to go up on more snaps. Correct. That doesn't tell you whether it's good or bad because, tackles aren't like you can make a tackle 20 yards down the field. But I would say how many snaps you play per tackle, which shows your instinct for getting to the ball, right? That to me is a more telling stat. That's a good progression there.
100% agreed. I mean, it's showing that he's taking advantage of his snaps. He's making the most out of them. And I think that's why relative statistics are good. But again, relative statistics, when you're looking at 47 snaps is, I mean, what can you really, like in statistics, you want the sample size to be at least 40, but like you want it to be more for this kind of like for higher volume things like snaps, you want it to be much higher.
Right. I think we can almost assume that if he had played, say, 180 snaps as a rookie instead of 47, that his snap to tackle percentage is probably going to be better than 11.75.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's playing as a rookie, he's getting more comfortable. He's understanding. And we saw that growth. And we don't have the stats intentionally here for what it was last year, but it's probably right around 7, or if not better, because he was so much better even in year 3 than he was from year 2.
Sure. Absolutely.
Good stuff. All right. The next draft, the 2023 draft. We start with Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter. Yeah, listen, that's the first generational player, 100%. Especially coming in his rookie year, getting 7 sacks, 50 pressures, and then coming in his next year, getting 7 sacks again, 75 pressures. And look, his snap count did go up, right? He went from 427 to 711, difference of 284, a 66% increase. He deserved it. And you look at again, these sacks are from PFF. So it might, again, for people that like to follow this stuff, this is from PFF. So and remember, PFF does not count half sacks. That's a really important thing. I tend to agree with them on that, but that's a completely other time. Like we talked about
It's
that.
tough because there are some times where you are the main guy on a half sack,
I know.
and then there's times where you're cleaning up. So a half sack can be totally different based on the sack.
Yeah. It absolutely can. And I think there needs to be a better metric just in general on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
that's
we're
fair.
moving towards that. But I do want to point that out specifically with Jalen Carter because people like to follow the best players' sacks, and it may
Mhm.
not be what they expect. But again, this is from PFF, who does not believe in half sacks. PFF's sack count will always be inflated because of that. Just
Sure.
important shout out there. His hits went from 4 to 16, which is a huge and incredible change. Hurries went from 39 to 52, and we already talked about pressures. And what's interesting is his relative stats remained relatively constant in terms of pressure, right? So
Mhm.
he went from every 8.5 to every 9.5. That's like a negligible difference at that volume.
Right.
The sacks was a little bit of a fall, right? So you went from a sack every 61 snaps to every 102. But
Yep.
you got to think he was getting double teamed a lot more his second year and as continued. So
Yep.
sacks are going to be harder to come by. That's just
Yeah.
naturally how that works.
Yeah. It's sort of weird to almost see that because the raw data is like, well, wait a minute. He hit the quarterback, take the sacks out, just the quarterback hits. It went from 4 to 16. That's 4 times as many. So that's a major increase over just playing not even 2 times as many snaps. So the hit ratio on the quarterback was way above the snap ratio. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
You
that's
didn't even double your snaps, but you quadrupled your hits on the quarterback. That's pretty impressive.
yeah, it really is. It is a testament to how dominant Jalen Carter is just in his first 2 years in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
Good
expect
metric,
this trend to continue.
but he is so he. I tend to also want to say yes, he plays the same position, just like Jalyx Hunt will play the same position. You can see some good commonalities, but you're talking about a top 10 pick who is a freak of nature versus a third round pick. So
Sure.
that's where we kind of reined it in. It's got to be somewhere in between.
Yeah. No, 100%. I would argue Jalen Carter might be one of the best football players in the entire league right now.
Right.
So
Now, Nolan Smith might be a really good example because even though he's also a first round pick, bottom of the first, did not play as much either as a rookie, and then saw a lot of progression by year 2. I feel like this is what you're expecting from Jalyx Hunt, like something in that. I don't know if he'll get to 755 pass rushing snaps, but something, hopefully 400 to 500
sure.
over that, around there.
Yeah. And so Nolan Smith is a fun one because he was another one where everything is green, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's a time where you see significant growth from
Right.
year 1 to year 2. So, right, I mean, listen, his snap count went up 272%, right? From
Mhm.
203 to 755. But
Mhm.
his sack count went from 2 to 11. His hits went from 2 to 5, which isn't great, but his hurries 5 to 34.
Yeah.
He went from 9 pressures to 50 pressures, a difference of 41 at an increase of 456%.
So real quick, on the sacks, right?
Sure.
On 11. Now you said you take these from,
PFF.
and they credited him with 11 sacks.
Also in the playoffs, yeah.
Oh, I forgot they combined the play. Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Makes a lot of sense. I'm like, this guy had 6.5, 11. I don't know what PF, but I forgot they were also taking the playoffs. That's fair.
Yes. So that is,
Amazing because he basically had 50% of his sacks in the playoffs.
hey, when the lights shine the brightest, that's where you gotta play.
It's
So
exceptional. That's really good. Yes, everything is green, including the relative snaps. So the relative stats. Sorry. So he's getting a better sack per snap and a better pressure per snap percentage from year 1 to year 2 by far.
yeah. It it
Really
it
big increases.
it was the probably, in my opinion, the best year 1 to year 2 jump out of anybody.
Right. Yes, I think that's fair. Yeah, no doubt. And that's saying a lot with Jalen Carter, who also made a tremendous year 1 to year
Mhm.
2. I think Nolan Smith, his trajectory here is about as applicable as we can get. The Milton Williams one is really good, because Milton was rotational for the first 2 years, and I do think Jalyx Hunt, even as a starter, will be rotational and probably not play as many snaps per game as Nolan Smith, unless he's just that good, right? But we don't know that for sure yet.
Yeah.
So I think like something between the Milton Williams and Nolan Smith projections to me are the best way to kind of try to get, in the spirit of the question, the most accurate judgment on what to expect from Jalyx Hunt.
Sure. I would agree with that 100%.
So both of those guys were heavily green as far as improvement in the areas. And Milton, we did see some regression because he played fewer snaps in year 2. So we can expect maybe a little bit of regression, although with Milton, we did see a progression in at least his relative snaps per sack or sack per snaps category. So again, it wasn't a nightmare, right? It was good regardless, even if the snaps weren't maybe what he was hoping or wasn't as abundant as you might think for a guy going into year 2 at that position.
Yeah. There still are 3 more charts, by the way.
Why did I stop sharing the screen when there are 3 more charts?
You're good.
Hold on 1 second.
To be honest with you, I was just excited to talk about Tyler Steen again, who we talked about last episode. And I didn't want to miss the opportunity to talk about him, really.
Gotta talk Tyler Steen, just like we did in the last mailbag. All right, let me go. I forgot you put some space between. So here we go. All right, this is also the 2023 draft. And we got Steen, Sidney Brown, and, of course, the guy we're talking about, Jalyx Hunt.
Yeah. We can go pretty quickly on these, though, because they're not as important to the comparison. We'll spend a little bit more time on Hunt, obviously. But, Steen increased his snap count from 42 to 179. He didn't allow a sack or a hit last season, but his hurries went up, and then his pressures went up naturally. That's just kind of how that works. But really nothing too crazy. Still feel very comfortable with Tyler Steen. I think his progression from year 1 to year 2 is typical considering the amount he actually played. So
yes, I think the important number is overall from year 1 to year 2 is the relative pressure per snap, which is 1 pressure every 7 snaps in year 1, which again limited. So all you have to do is allow 1 or 2, and already it's going to be high. But in year 2, when there was about as you have here, a 326% change in the number of snaps you played, the number went from 1 pressure to every about 15 snaps. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad at all. So
yeah. Now, if you extrapolate that, right, 15 snaps, you probably are going to get 30 pass rush sets, I guess, in a game, usually around there. So now you extrapolate. Well, that means you're going to allow about 2 pressures. Probably not bad for a guard,
Yeah. No, you feel pretty good.
But that number can change both positively or negatively when you become a starter. So we'll see.
And will change.
Yes.
Assuming he wins the job. Regardless, I mean, they're probably going to allow more pressure than what we see there, just by the nature of being starter.
Right. How do we make of Sidney is a tough one?
That's not a fair one either.
Coming off the injury,
coming off the ACL, it's I don't know. I threw it in there because he was a 3rd round, so it's like he fits the criteria.
Right.
I look at this and I'd be like, so.
If so your data shows that he improved from year 1 to year 2 as far as how many yards and receptions allowed. Obviously, a lot of that is because he didn't play much on defense last year. But even the 16 for 180 as a rookie, like he was playing nickel.
Yeah.
He was playing he was playing like dime safety. And he was asked to cover man-to-man a lot. And at that point, Matt Patricia's wonky defense, he was just miscast. So I can't even look at giving up the 180 yards on 2 touchdowns and 16 receptions as some kind of, foreshadower of what he's like in coverage, because he wasn't even in the right kind of coverage.
Yeah, no, for sure. I look at that and I'm like, this chart means absolutely nothing, but I had to put it because it fit with the theme. but please just ignore that one. Who knows?
I like that you did the work anyway. You could have easily said we're not going to count Sidney Brown because why, right? But you
The
did it.
people deserve to see it, but they
Yep.
also deserve me telling them to ignore it. So
So just don't go run and be like, man, Sidney Brown played only 80 snaps last year, but he didn't even allow a catch or a touchdown or a yards. He had that really nice interception against the Giants, man. That's compared to year one, he was amazing. Well, no, it's really not like that. All right, so Jalyx, how do you want to explain these extrapolated 2025
So
stats?
listen, you got to bear with me here.
Okay.
My extrapolation methodology is not my favorite. Okay. I've had better extrapolations in the past. I felt more comfortable about my extrapolations in the past. I don't feel great about this. I actually like the way you said it a little bit better about how it's probably going to be somewhere between Milton Williams and Nolan Smith's change. But let me talk you through what I did anyway, because I
actually think these extrapolations are completely normal. I'm surprised that you're down on them, but I think it's pretty good.
Okay, so I did two methods, right? So I have the 2025 with the 1 star and the 2025 with the 2 star. So the way I came up with how much pass rush snaps they're going to get is I took the average of the defensive linemen that we showed above.
Okay.
And they, on average, increased 97%, so almost double from what they had. And that's including Milton Williams, who went down, right? But it's also including Nolan Smith, who went up a significant amount. So, just that number, we're looking at like 4 guys, and the average of 4 guys. Don't feel great about that. I'm going to be honest. But on the basis of what we're doing, it's fine. Let's just say he basically doubles, goes from 194 to 383. That was the basis. That's how we got it.
Right.
Now, if you took his relative stats and then you extrapolate it out, you get 8, 4, 26, and 38. That's as simple as that one came. That's where that extrapolation came from. But it's just
that, my friends, it's just math, by the way. Right?
Yeah. Listen,
it's multiplying by 2.
It's multiplying by 2. That's why I don't like it, because it's too basic. It's
too basic for you. I get it. For me, I'm like, this makes total sense. I love it. You're like, eh.
But the second number comes a little bit differently.
Okay.
So I took that 383 number, and then I took 10% of it, because it's pretty close to what the average is for edge rushers getting pressure on 10% of their snaps. And you would say that's 38.3. It's not 39. But guys, when I round everything up, because you're going to have to round everything up, the number's 39. It's not going to be 38.3. I wanted round numbers. I'm sick of these, We're not going past that. Who's going to talk about 1.3 snaps? 1.3 sacks. That doesn't.
You can't play a third of a snap in a game, right? So we're trying to imagine what this is like per a game or per a season. So
yeah, so that's why it's 39. That's not why it's 38. Then I took that 39 number and I multiplied it by certain numbers. So I think the sack one I did was like 18% of the pressures were sacks. Okay. And then I think I took whatever. I did the same thing with hits. I don't remember what the number I used for hits was. And then I just took the rest and I put them as hurries. That's where that came from. That's a total estimation based on some numbers that I saw were like consistent with league average. But again, league average changes and it's not really a great indicator. But that's where those numbers come from. Okay. Assuming that Jalyx Hunt plays 400 snaps, I think it's safe to say his sacks will be anywhere from 6 to 8. I think his hits will be anywhere from, 4 to 10. Who knows? And the hurries will be anywhere from like 22 to 30. I think those are fair numbers. Now you guys can come back at the end and tell me how wrong or how right I am. That's fine.
Honestly, this is about as fair. I mean, I appreciate that you gave the both scenarios here and just tried to be as real with the context as possible. All this is dependent upon opportunity that you've already showed with empirical data of other guys drafted in the first, second, and third round, where almost all of them had more opportunity from year 1 to year 2 because they were higher picks, right? Because there were expectations, because they grew in year 1. Like that's the only way you look at this, Sam, and say, and this must probably what's frustrating for you, as I'll come back to just us now. You do all this work and then a guy goes out third day of camp and tears his Achilles and he's done for the year. And it's like, well, we'll never have this discussion again because it'll be lost. And knock on wood, I hope nobody tears their Achilles. But my point is, this happens, right? I mean, we could have done this last year or 2 years ago, whatever, on Sidney Brown coming off of his rookie year, and then of course, or right in the middle of his rookie year. What can we say for year 2? And then bam, he obviously tears his ACL.
That's
so
what happens when you
right.
delve into the theoretical and the hypothetical.
It can be a very dark and ugly chamber to enter, Sam, when things don't go well.
Hey, listen, we're optimists, or at least I am. So we're gonna stay in that sunshine and rainbow land.
Right. But I mean, to counter your skepticism over your own great work is like, if somebody came back at you and said, well, I don't know, I could probably find projections from some edge rushers who did this, and then the next year they had like no sacks and they were benched. Like, fine, okay. You already said at the beginning, like, there's a whole lot of variables that can happen here. You're just trying to go off data from being a high draft pick in an environment where there have been other high draft picks. How much opportunity did they get compared to what we're expecting from Jalyx Hunt? And if he were to get this opportunity, the data said, this is like when we talk about Greg Cosell, when people get upset with him, it's what the tape shows. This player didn't do this well in this game. It doesn't mean he'll never do it well. It's just literally in this game, he didn't do it well, or he did it great. Doesn't mean he's going to be doing it great all the time. So I think that you've done the best you can to be objective based on the evidence, which is what the show is about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's important to us. We want to be as objective as possible. That's why we're never going to make up stats or anything crazy like that.
Right.
But I will tell you when there are assumptions, and when honestly, there are too many assumptions that I feel comfortable putting my stamp on it. Mm-hmm. However, we had a fun thought exercise, and I hope you guys learned something.
100%. I love it. Sam, you did a great job. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And let's keep this thing rolling throughout the summer and into camp. Again, send your questions to insidethebirds@gmail.com. Direct them to Sam Finkel, and we will continue producing this wonderful content for you. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Data. For Sam Finkel, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching Inside the Data on Inside the Birds.